The fall of FaZe Clan does continue, guys, as an article is broken out, and we got to go through this whole thing. As it talks about FaZe Clan throwing away money into the garbage, well, no, they don't think so, as their former CEO, Lee Trink, says they were not throwing money away, but they were creating a mythology around FaZe Clan. If you guys have not been keeping up with the recent news around FaZe Clan, they have now let go that former CEO, Lee Trink. Many people thinking that a merger or acquisition is coming. Their stock prices hit all-time lows, and their OG members, including FaZe Rain, continue to speak up against the organization. And it's a lot to break through, but of course, please go check out the full article, guys. It is an amazing article, the breakdown of the timeline of where FaZe Clan was a few years back and how it's come to where it is today. So let's break it down. It's titled From $1 Billion to Almost Worthless, FaZe Clan Runs Out of Hype. And it starts out pretty shocking, guys, as they debuted on the NASDAQ going public back in July of last year, and they threw an exclusive party in a San Diego nightclub, hiring the rapper Travis Scott to promote its stable of the video game stars and YouTube personalities. Social media influencers mingle with gamers in expensive streetwear. Many looked bored as they filmed the event for their online channels. Well past midnight, Travis Scott appeared for a 15-minute show. His voice barely audible over the thumping bass. The party, which cost $1.7 million, got the company and a sponsor's name in hundreds of Google search results, YouTube videos, and Instagram stories. When Lee Trink was asked about the party afterwards, he said, "We achieved all the things we had hoped for, including making money." And I remember hearing about this party back when we were actually in LA and then close to San Diego at the time, I believe around TwitchCon, and $1.7 million for a single party. If you want to talk about reckless spending, yes, FaZe Clan maybe had the capital at the time, but looking forward just over a year where they are now broke and their stock price is 18 cents or lower, it looks like maybe a mismanagement of funds. That is the premise of this article as they go on to list all the budget that FaZe Clan has spent amongst its, gigantic rise and then its tumultuous failure over the past year and a half. $1.7 million on a single night for a party is not your typical expense for an esports and gaming organization. As they continue, LA-based FaZe reported a $50 million loss from operations last year. After initially projecting that it would debut on the stock market with a $1 billion valuation, its shares have now tumbled to 18 cents from previously being over $20, reflecting skepticism that the social media activities of the young, largely male gamers could ever be a sustainable business. Later on, the article remarks the company now has a roster of 127 internet personalities posting on sites that include Instagram and Twitch, but translating all those eyeballs into a profitable business has proved daunting. I was actually shocked because if you guys remember earlier this year, we had not just one FaZe Clan layoff, but a double layoff. I believe the first round being 20%, second round being 40%. So a large layoff when it comes to FaZe Clan employees. I don't know if this is still up to date, but if they still have 127 creators, streamers, players, employees, that's a lot of people, and you wonder why it takes so much money to run FaZe, and a $50 million operating loss last year is when you have 120 plus employees. They also mention Greg Selko. He is now with XSET. He actually formed XSET, I believe, in a bit of a rivalry with FaZe Clan. He was former, I believe, the president at FaZe Clan. And then in leaving, FaZe actually paid Selko $3.2 million to settle a lawsuit over his departure, according to a public file. I did not even realize that having to pay a single man $3.2 million just to leave the company and start a rival organization, which, by the way, XSET has their own lawsuits going on with Valorant players right now, so I won't say too much about them, but that's more money out of FaZe Clan's pocket. And the biggest thing, one of the biggest things in this article, but even as sales grew, so did expenses. FaZe rented a series of luxury apartments that served as homes and filming locations for its media stars. The cost, including rent, utilities, and security, ran to as much as $60,000 per month. Among the properties was a lakefront mansion in suburban LA, now estimated to be worth $12 million. The FaZe member said was previously home to singer Justin Bieber. $60,000 a month just in rent. This is back in the days where the big OG guys, I think Banks was there, I want to say Rain was there, some other big names members like Adapt were in that house, and I remember covering this, their $12 million mansion, right? $60K a month, which now hindsight 2023, maybe not the best thing. Even further to add to this, Lee Trink's comment saying, "We weren't throwing money in the garbage. We were creating a mythology." A lot of people having a lot of things to say about creating the mythology around FaZe Clan and the brand, which I don't think personally was ever needed. Long gone are the days of the FaZe New York house and the trick shotters and the OG members actually making content. I don't know what mythology was being created around FaZe Clan. I would say more of a falsity, more of I don't know, borderline fraudulent idea of what FaZe Clan had become, this so-called billion-dollar organization, which underneath the hood didn't really have anything. Like, it was all, like it was a myth. That's what it feels like. It was a myth. And it was something that a lot of members did not want to be pushed to the public, but it was pushed to the public, maybe just to make some money. And so, like, when you say you're creating this mythology, maybe I agree with you in a sense. It does continue to talk about some other big things out there, like Nick Merckx, his supposed salary being $500K a year annually, signing a 3-year deal back in 2020. So we'll see if Nick Merckx actually does re-sign or leave FaZe Clan. You can argue whether or not Nick Merckx is worth that, but his client, his representation actually responding and saying how many merch sales he'd been responsible for. It's a large amount of money, but no different from other big streamers and the bags they had been signing deal-wise with organizations, especially back in 2020. And you could also argue not just the merch sales and all the events and of course, the fan base Nick Merckx has, his viewing hours on Twitch, but also the fact he was the biggest Twitch streamer for FaZe Clan. He was the biggest streamer for FaZe Clan, hands down, over the course of the last 3 years. So you can argue all you want, but I would say that's a $500K is a lot better than the leaked $1 million that FaZe Rain said he was making. So tit for tat, take it as you want it. And one thing that was also shocking, guys, not only the price they pay for Nick Merckx, but people like Snoop Dogg and I'm sure many others as account for their expenses being in the tens and tens of millions of dollars. Lee Trink, their CEO, earned $730K in salary and bonus in 2022, which is actually down from nearly double that the year before in 2021, where he made $1.4 million. FaZe Clan CEO rented a Malibu beach house where he sometimes held meetings. His rockstar persona extended to the office where he worked on an elevated platform in the center of Hollywood warehouse. The executive brought his pit bull to work where at least one staffer was apparently bit. And yeah, maybe this is very, very interesting information to have. Don't really care about the pit bull, but unfortunate for the worker who actually got bit by the dog. But for a CEO in the esports industry to be making north of $1 million, even more than that, that's pretty astounding. You would say that's probably the highest paid CEO in all of esports and gaming by a good margin, at least by what we know. That is a large amount of money to be footing the bill for a CEO. Like, that's a ridiculous sum of money to be paying a guy who came into FaZe Clan just to do this and to see where its stock price is currently at. It's going to rub some people the wrong way. Very lastly, what might rub you the wrong way is according to their SPAC deal and merger, FaZe Clan projected that by 2025, they would have $650 million in revenue. That makes you just want, they thought FaZe Clan would be making $650 million in revenue in just a couple of years. From what? Do you guys, and we are in the middle of esports winter, I can guarantee you that's not going to be happening. $650 million in revenue? From what? And reading through this, please go read the whole article, guys. I left out most of this, half of it at least, of the storyline of how FaZe Clan came to be where they are today. But to read through this article and to have a former CEO at FaZe Clan be paid, average $1 million a year for several years, and to say they were not throwing money in the garbage after spending $1.7 million on a party, $60K a month on rent. I mean, just absurd amounts of money, and why they're in the hole right now is because they can't make money. They were creating a mythology, and it's a crazy story. I hope it does turn around. I don't know where the heck it goes from here. What do you guys think? Till next time, though, you take care of yourselves. We'll see you back here sometime soon.